Toxic towns are nothing new on this channel. We've delved into environmental disasters caused by single mining companies that resulted in people losing their homes and having to relocate. Dangerous toxic air is an ongoing problem in many towns around the world. But what if the problem was much bigger than that? What if the ability to up and relocate wasn't really ideal because it took over an entire city? A city so dense with smog that you can't even see your own feet sounds like something straight out of Silent Hill. But today, we'll delve into the very real environmental disaster known as the Great London Smog. The event took place in December of 1952. Nothing looked out of place that morning, with clear skies and the usual winter chill. Harmless at first, a dense fog began to descend upon the city. Nothing out of the ordinary. London was used to its foggy days. Within a few hours, however, the fog began to take on a greenish-brown tint. The fog was mixing with the usual industrial smoke, automobiles, and coal from chimneys. Recent changes in the tram system had something to do with this, as the usual electric systems had recently been changed to diesel fuel. Numerous coal-powered stations also had a hand in this, as it pumped sulfur dioxide into the air. So it was a little smoggy. No big deal. Nothing to worry about. Yet. London was accustomed to its smog. It would usually settle in for a few hours, then be blown away by the wind. No big deal. What was different this time was a lack of wind. A temperature inversion was causing a layer of warm air to trap cold air close to the ground. As a result, the smoggy air was not lifting up, and no wind meant that it wasn't getting blown away. The smog gained the name pea souper because of the toxic-looking color of it, which also smelt like rotten eggs. The fog was so dense that people couldn't see their own feet. Boat traffic on the Thames had to be stopped as the foul air continued to roll in for 5 days. People driving their cars often abandoned them to avoid getting into accidents, and larger vehicles like buses had to be directed by people with flashing lights. Due to the decreased visibility, there was increased looting, purse snatchings, and burglaries. Children also had to be kept from school for fear that they would get lost in the fog. Sporting events were also canceled. All of this was proving annoying at first, but there was a much bigger consequence to living in this kind of smog. People were finding black grease on the walls and sidewalks, and soon it was getting into their homes. They'd come home from work covered in the black grease, making it look like they'd been working in the mines all day. The hazardous smog lay dense in the city for 5 days, but in the following weeks it would wreak havoc on the young and elderly, causing respiratory tract infections, bronchitis, and ending the lives of 4,000 people. Pneumonia was on the rise in the summer that followed in 1953, causing more premature deaths. Experts say that the Great Smog was the cause of roughly 12,000 deaths. Other effects of the Great Smog include birds that got lost and flew into buildings, and livestock that was choking and had to be fitted with special gas masks made of grain sacks and whiskey. On December 9th, a wind from the west finally came in to the rescue, blowing the smog out of London towards the North Sea. During the 5-day event, smoke particles, carbon dioxide, hydrochloric acid, and fluoride compounds were released into the atmosphere. So what was gained from the Great London Smog? The British government didn't act right away, as fog was something that they were pretty used to, and it took them a while to point blame at the event. After discovering that so many premature deaths were caused because of the smog, Parliament passed the first Clean Air Act in 1956, which restricted coal burning. Homeowners were given grants to convert their coal-burning heat sources into a much cleaner alternative, and while it took years, the city began to focus on moving away from the coal-burning practices. Since the Great Smog, many other bouts of deadly fog have rolled through London and claimed the lives of many, but none have been as infamous as this event. It's a shame that so many people had to suffer before Clean Air Acts were put into place and changes to the environment had to be considered. Many died in their sleep from the Great Smog, and others suffered much longer with respiratory infections. None of them deserved it. Thanks for watching. For more oddities, true crime, true horror, and bad horror movie reviews, please consider subscribing. Game with me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and as always, be well.